Okay, so I'm going to explain how I got from planning to live on a cruise ship for 3.5 years to where I am now, which is living in a van. And back in the beginning, when I was getting close to retirement age, I saw a clip on the news about a residential cruise ship. The advertisement said $30,000 a year. You can live on a cruise ship. So, of course, that piqued my interest. So I immediately went online, I checked it out. I'm going to show you some of the clips that I saw. Lots of news stations were starting to cover this, basically because of the price. I looked into it, discovered, well, for one person in the cabin with two people, it was $30,000. So if you're a solo traveler, it would have been $60,000. Anyway, I was interested enough to check with the company and did a reasonable amount of research. So I thought the company was called Life at Seas. They were going to use a ship owned by Murray Cruises called the Gemini. They had a website set up. Everything looked great. I talked to a sales consultant. This was about April of 2024. And the cruise was supposed to start November 1st, that same year, 2024. So this wasn't a lot of time to prepare for this. So the more I looked into it, long story short, I signed up for the whole, that was a 3-year cruise with Life at Seas. I signed up and then started getting all my ducks in a row. Had to renew my passport because I only had a couple years left. Had to get a Chinese visa. They told us to do that because you need to do that ideally before you set off on the cruise. I had vaccinations because we were going all over South America and places with, some crazy diseases. So got vaccinations, spent a lot of money on vaccinations, the Chinese visa, renewing my passport. I was doing all that while I was liquidating one of my companies that I had set up for retirement, which was checking on condos in Florida when people are gone for the summer. I had a couple hundred units that I was checking every summer. It was easy job for me to do for additional income, and I was setting it up for my retirement, which is as long as I could still walk and go upstairs, I could do that job. So I had that business, and then I also am a handy woman. I did small home repairs and renovations, renovated a lot of condos myself. I also do all of that. So I had that business, which was pretty much my full-time business. Worked out great. Had done that for many, many years in Florida. So the next thing I did was I informed all of my customers November 1st was going to be my retirement date. I did try to find someone to replace myself, but found out I was kind of irreplaceable. So at least in that capacity. So informed my customers, set everything up, got all my ducks in a row. I found a longtime family friend to take over the condo sitting business. Spent quite a while getting that set up to transfer over to that person. So got all that done. So it was a very, very busy 4 months. Also leased my condo that I was living in. Wasn't ready to sell it. I love the condo. I would like to be able to come back to it at a certain time. So I leased my condo. Actually, within 24 hours of listing it online, I had that leased beginning of September to have that tenant move in November 1st. So that was all set up. So as of November 1st, I was homeless. I had to be out of there, but I expected to be on a world cruise. Long story short, that all fell apart. So the Life at Sea cruise, after 1 or 2 delays in November, finally on November 20th, said they had to cancel the whole thing. They were trying to buy a ship, and the deal didn't go through. So as of November 20th, that cruise was canceled, and everyone who was signed up was just left hanging. We were informed in many different ways that Michael Peterson, who had played a big part in the Life at Sea business and cruise and sales of that cruise, had left that company, which we were aware of earlier, over a dispute with Murray Cruises. He had left and started his own company, which now he was reaching out to everyone left hanging from the Life at Sea cruises, that he had his own company now set up called Villa Vie Residences. He was in the process of buying a ship, and this was all going to be ready to go soon. At that time, they had a website set up, sales team in place, and they were scheduled to begin May 15th out of Southampton, and that was going to be a 3.5-year cruise. So, of course, we all jumped over and started looking into that. It was actually going to be a better deal financially for me than what Life at Sea had offered. Was a 3.5-year cruise instead of 3 years. That was no problem for me. I was probably going to stay on longer. So looked into that. But of course, with the Life at Sea mess and them losing the ship the last minute, I wasn't going to send any money or sign up for anything until they had completed their purchase of the ship, which was in December. So they actually got that done, and all of the Life at Sea people had avenues to communicate with each other. So we were all talking, who's going to do this, and it turned out there was probably about 40 people from Life at Seas that had switched over to the Villa Vie cruise ship. So that was pretty exciting. I had been talking to these people in chats online since April. It was now December, so I felt like I was getting to know a lot of them, and was looking forward to being their neighbors on a cruise ship and cruising with them. So since most of my friends that I was looking forward to spending time with was going to be on the Villa Vie cruise, that kind of pushed my decision in that direction. And also, I had nowhere to live. I'd already, liquidated my businesses, was retired, had already, started my retirement income. So I was ready to go. Had my vaccinations, had my Chinese visa. I was ready to go, and now had to calculate how much longer I had to wait. And to go back in time a little bit, in November, when the Life at Sea cruise fell apart, I had to be out of my condo on November 1st. So I was temporarily staying at my daughter's, thinking it would be a couple of weeks, because they gave us about a 2-week delay the first time around. And then when they canceled completely on the 20th, I was so depressed and confused and didn't know what I was going to do. And heard of someone taking a transatlantic cruise. Does anybody else want to go? So I actually flew over to Europe, took a cruise back, 16-day cruise, just to kind of get my head together, have kind of somebody else take care of me, somebody else feed me, a nice place to stay, something to take my mind off of the fact that, what I had planned for several months just fell apart. And also, they had a lot of my money, which, of course, they said they were going to pay it back, but we know now that didn't happen. They paid back a handful of people, did not pay back a lot of people. There's lawsuits happening there now, and they still owe me a lot of people. I'm watching those lawsuits to see if they progress and they are successful, and then I'm probably going to have to start a lawsuit against Life at Sea, or actually Murray Cruises, or the people who have the money. Okay, so I sign up with Villa Vie in December, and I have to have somewhere to live until May 15th. So I actually looked in Florida, found a great little efficiency in Tampa, Florida. I was going to move in right after Christmas that I wanted to spend with my family. Had that secured until I was going to leave for the cruise. And then, like I needed any more disappointments in my life at the moment, 2 days before I was supposed to move in there on December 24th, the day before Christmas, the owner of that unit called and said they found somebody who was willing to sign a lease for a year, and they were going to give the unit to them because I was only going to sign a lease for 4.5 months. So they found a better deal, pulled it out from under me, and now I am back to square one again with nowhere to live. So had to regroup again. Went on the Facebook group that we had for the Life at Sea people, and I remember somebody in that group saying that, hey, they lived in Ecuador and it was a very cheap place to live. So I was desperate at this point. So I went online and said, hey, does anybody else want to go to Ecuador? And I had looked up some houses on Airbnb and found some places. And a couple people chimed in. I ended up on January 1st flying to Ecuador, ended up renting a house with someone else also waiting on the cruise, the Villa Vie cruise. Ended up renting a house in a very secluded little expat community on the beach in Ecuador, which turned out to be just lovely. It was a great place, kind of a mental and physical rehab, which I needed at the time, to get myself together and to regroup mentally to get ready for now the Villa Vie 3.5-year cruise. So went over to Ecuador, spent 4 months there, flew back with my friend on May 1st. Very excited. We both flew home to get our bags repacked to turn around and fly over to Southampton to begin the Villa Vie cruise. I do think that we had maybe a week or two notice at that time that they were going to be delayed by possibly 5 to 7 days. So we knew of a slight delay, but I already had my ticket back to Florida. I already had my ticket to Southampton. I had my hotel reservations in Southampton from the 11th, which is when I was going to arrive, to get on the ship on the 15th. Already had that all set up. Wasn't going to cancel it, and thought if I spend a few more days in Southampton, that's okay, because I didn't have anywhere to live anyway. So, next phase, fly back to Florida. I had a lot of my personal possessions in my daughter's attic, and went back, repacked my clothes because they had first been packed for Life at Sea, all of my belongings and everything I was going to take on this cruise, and I bought a lot of stuff for Life at Sea. Packed it all for Life at Sea to move it to my daughter's. Unpacked it all, repacked for Tampa. Then Tampa fell through. Unpacked it all, and then repacked for Ecuador. Went over there, got back from Ecuador, had to unpack and repack what I needed for, being one person, I can only carry so many pieces of luggage at a time. So I repacked what I was going to need for the first 4 months of the cruise, because it was supposed to start in Southampton, go up through Norway, Greenland, Iceland, Canada, and then bounce down the east coast of the US, and then in September it would be docking in Miami, which was perfect because my daughter's about an hour and a half from there. So, seeing as I was going to be in northern cooler climates, I packed all my clothes for cold weather and just the bare necessities of what I could get by with for 4 months on this cruise, knowing in September I was going to pick up then everything I needed for the entire 3.5 years in Miami. And we were going to be there for like 3 days, so it was perfect. I could take the train to my daughter's, get everything I needed, bring it back, load it on the ship, and I was good to go for the rest of the 3.5 years. I would have had everything I needed. So anyway, I flew to Southampton with my cold weather clothes, had some luggage, which I have pictures of, left on the train. I'm super excited. It had been a long wait between waiting for life at sea and then waiting another 4.5, 5 months for Villa Vie, and not being in my home, not being in a comfortable place. It was a long wait. Every day I was chalking off on my calendar. I was so excited to finally get going on this venture and to meet all the people I knew from chatting with online. So that was a big day. Okay, I am here and the journey is beginning. I'm leaving my hotel room in Miami Beach and getting on the flight to Southampton, England to begin my cruise. I will keep you documented. This is what I have. Luggage-wise, that I have to get to Southampton, which is an Uber ride to the airport and then a flight to Gatwick Airport, and then either a train or a bus to Southampton, and then possibly a taxi to my hotel room. This is leg number 2, and I will keep you up to date. It is May 12th. The day that I officially begin my journey. Head over to Southampton. Oh, and then they actually did a really nice thing where they said, hey, we're going to offer a P&O cruise. When they knew they were going to be delayed maybe a week out of Southampton, they said we're going to offer a P&O cruise. So anybody who wants to go on this P&O cruise, while you're waiting, you can do that. So I was probably the first one to sign up. I'm like, absolutely. That was going to go up through Norway. So yeah, signed up for that. That turned out to be a little bit of a chaotic situation because then, although I was signed up, they found out after making that announcement there was only 20 cabins left on this cruise ship. So everybody didn't get to go on this cruise, but a handful of people. I was one of the lucky ones. I got to go on this cruise to Norway on the P&O ship. So fly over to Southampton, and it was a whole, planes, trains, and automobiles. Like all of this transportation I had to figure out myself because I was traveling solo. Getting my luggage over there, which was the bare minimum of what I needed. Got it all over there, got into the hotel, that was good. The cruise, the P&O cruise, then wasn't leaving for 3 more days. So, had to get another hotel for 3 more days. So had to add that. The hotel I was in was full, had to move hotels, stay in that hotel for 3.5 days. Then get on the cruise, and everybody's like, well, hey, we got a lot of luggage. We don't want to take it all on the cruise. Company set up a way for us to ship it. And then we had to figure out how to get it to the shipping company, which was about 10 miles out of town. So that took some more logistical planning to whatever we weren't taking on the cruise to get to the shipping company, because then they decided they weren't going to bring the Villa Vie, the Odyssey, over to Southampton. They took it to Belfast for the dry dock. It was going to be a better situation if they flew all of us over, or we flew over to Belfast to get on the cruise. So they shipped luggage over there separately, We went on the P&O cruise, 7 days, I think. The day we got back, we all had to make arrangements to immediately jump in a shuttle, get to the airport. Most of us booked our own flight. I booked my own flight, paid for it myself, to get to Belfast. The company had reserved hotels there, I think for most everybody, I believe for 5 days, 5 or 7 days. I think it was 5 days initially. We got over there, we went to the hotel they booked for us, nice hotels, thinking that was just going to be another 4 or 5 day delay. That's when the rudder stocks came into play. Now they're getting into some big mechanical issues that were not going to be fixed in a couple of days.